Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Dude.
What's up, man?
Hey.
Good morning from the coffee shop. Good afternoon, good evening, good night.
Yeah, it's good stuff, huh? Good
Totally,
stuff
man.
being here. I mean, you know, I'm glad a coffee shop's open because I love 24-hour coffee shops. I find myself awake at the most bizarre times these days. I mean, I used to have a pattern, right? So the old drunk Mike, the pattern was there was no pattern. That was the pattern because I would drink till oblivion and then I would kind of pass out, you know, get a little rest in there, and then get up, do it again for another 4 to 8 hour stint, and then go back out. It was bizarre sleep pattern. Now, then I went to getting a good night's sleep, so that meant going to bed late, you know, normal, watching the evening news as they used to do, right, and then go to sleep. And now I'm like up early. I love your line where you say, you know, I used to curse the sunrises, now I crave them. And that's how I feel now. I wake up so early and energized to kind of see what the world is going to play out for me.
So one of the most brilliant things in my past was, I did the calculation, the algorithm of how I was going to live, you know, where I was going to get my booze for the day, right? That was a big algorithm. And you know, what I should have done, and as I look back, it's crazy, I should have just bought like 5 cases of vodka handles, right?
Right, and just stored them right in the middle of the living room.
Them, yeah, just
right
stacked
in the middle
them
of
up
the living
and
room.
just gone to it. But instead, I wanted to try to control, right? I said, I'm not going to get blitzed today. So I would buy small quantities to try to control how much I drank through the day. And I'd land up drinking the handle anyhow.
Sure.
It's just in 5 other smaller bottles.
Well,
right?
I wasn't trying to control anything. I was trying to control. The only thing I was trying to control was people witnessing how much I consumed, right? So I was hiding from them what they already knew.
Well, I was living by myself, so I didn't have any of that. But no, I would. And so the brilliance was, I had a bar that opened at 6:30 in the morning, Mark's Bar.
Okay.
And then most of the other bars around me closed at 12, 1, or 2, right?
Okay.
So I had that 4 hours of no man's land.
Oh, no.
Right? And
gas stations sell.
you know what? I didn't have one close enough to me that sold it. I would have had to get my car, and by then I was blitzed, and then, I was walking everywhere. But, I'd walk 2 blocks to this bar at 6:30 in the morning.
Good morning.
And I'd be shaking.
Yeah, right.
You know, I'd be shaking and just get that first, 4 or 5 in me, and then I'd be okay. But you know what? We don't have to do that anymore.
No, we don't.
It's really, really cool. So,
what are we talking about today?
So our topic today is, we're not trying to give Mark's Bar a shout out.
No, right? Yeah. We're sponsored by Mark's Bar.
Mark's Bar opens at 6:30. Boy, I'll tell you what.
Come bring the family.
But I'll tell you, I saw that place with lights on one time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, it's nasty.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, they're nasty places.
All right, so here's what we want to touch on today.
Yeah.
We want to do our episode on living sorry.
Living sorry. Okay.
The importance of self-forgiveness.
I love that. That's pretty deep. We're going to turn the light on something there.
Oh,
talk about turning the light on.
I like how you put that. So clearly, in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? There's, by the time you get to 4th, 5th step, 8th, 9th step, you're doing a lot of personal reflection, a lot of listing, a lot of inventories, right? And you start at 8 to 9, make a list of all people we had being harmed, right, and be willing to make amends. Right, so that's part of that is saying, "Hey, I'm sorry," but it's not just saying I'm sorry because people are sick and tired of our words.
No, absolutely.
Right, so it's how do you live sorry, right? But so at least for me, and hey, I've worked the steps myself, and every time I have a sponsee, I work the steps with a sponsee, and so I'm making a lot of lists, right, and I do a lot of reflection, and there's always people's names on there, but it took me a while to put my name on there.
Yeah,
right? So when we talk about the importance of self-forgiveness, it's something to talk about. So I thought we just
No, I love that. It's funny.
About it.
My sponsor. So I've had 2 sponsors in the program, and I couldn't more highly recommend.
Is yourself one of
getting
them?
a sponsor? No, I didn't self-sponsor.
I have guys that do that.
Yeah, right, sure.
It doesn't work out so well.
I got my own program. No, I had one guy, Pete. He was great. I got him in my second meeting because I was told to go get a sponsor right away. Couldn't ask for a better sponsor. Worked me through the steps. Just very encouraging and just did the right
how
thing.
was he on Life Insights?
It wasn't his job.
Right. So you wouldn't go to him with just like life challenges?
No, not necessarily.
Just focus on the steps.
But I got to tell you, what kind of challenges do you have? They're greatly reduced when you stop consuming alcohol. I mean,
totally agree.
A lot of my challenges cleared up for me. Almost all of my challenges cleared up. It was these things we were talking about this morning that didn't clear up for me, and that was long-standing relationship issues with both others and myself, right? But so then my second sponsor, what he did when we got through the 4th step, because we worked him again, he said, why don't we just go through them again? I said, okay, well, I kind of felt like I did them. He goes, well, it's not going to hurt us, and you're always working the steps, so
right.
Let's just button them up, make sure you're in good shape. Kind of did a tune-up on me, right?
Oh,
a new car tune-up, right?
Yeah.
So we do this tune-up, and we get to step 5, and I'm sitting down with him, and we're talking about my resentments, and he says, something's missing. And I said, nothing's missing. I've told you pretty much my story. I carved everything out. And he said, yeah, you're missing off this list. And the realization hit me at that point, and I was already a few years in the program, but the realization hit me at that point that I had resentments against myself. And the big book warns us that resentment could be the number one reason, right? Cause of relapse. So I better pay attention to it. So
okay, so let's just set the alarm. Let's put the blue flashing light.
Mm-hmm.
You were years into your sobriety, at least 3, right?
Right. I was still holding on to resentments against myself.
And you worked the program.
Yes.
You worked the 12 steps, and you still have self-forgiveness that you needed to deliver.
That's right. Absolutely.
So that's a blue flashing light special for
absolutely.
For folks out there that, hey, and that's what I realized working through the program is that it doesn't focus a lot on self, right? But, I'm also thinking through this out loud, which means I'll hurt myself. But if you think about it, early on, I guess if it did focus on self, that's where I would have gone first.
Mm-hmm.
I would have, my ego, because I didn't have my ego conquered at that point, my ego would have said, forgive yourself first, screw everybody else. Just, fix your, just feel good about yourself first.
Right.
But it's only through cleaning your side of the street and getting forgiveness and working steps 8 and 9, 4, 5, 8, 9, and really, getting a connection with a higher power. It's having that behind you, and then it's, okay, man, I've done enough, and I have enough momentum, I can start to forgive myself.
Yeah. And, I didn't even know how to begin with that. But
so is that an event or a process for you?
It was
self-forgiveness.
It was a process, and I'll tell you, and we've talked about it certainly over the couple hundred episodes we've done, but I sought outside counsel, literally, and a therapist, a counselor, to work through the issues. We had a very straightforward relationship. I said, I know I'm harboring resentments and anger about my past deeds. I know I'm doing that, and I need for you to uncover anything that might cause me a relapse. And that's your job. You need to uncover and help me deal with anything that could be a relapse. My job is to be 100% honest with you. And so we had a great relationship, and we worked through things that really pained me when I was young. And I guess the thing for me that was the eye-opener was once the therapist had me frame out who I was really mad at, because I was still mad at current Mike for something that young Mike did, right? Or drunk Mike did, or angered Mike did. I kind of had to forgive that version of the person who did the harm I had to forgive that version of the Mike. Does that make any kind of? I'm no psychotherapist,
So
but
how
I
does
love
that-
the way she worked me through it. And I guess,
Yeah. So how does
yes.
that work? I mean, there's no light switch, right?
Right, no.
There's no rewiring. You just connect two different wires to two different spaces, and things
Right.
are all cleared up.
Right? No.
Well, let me work backwards. Where are you today? Do you feel that you have forgiven yourself today?
I feel I absolutely have forgiven myself today, but I feel that there are, I've got 64 years of history here. My wife and I were talking about things that happened when we were in second and third grade and kindergarten yesterday. Yesterday we were just like, how far back does our memory go? Well, there's stuff, as I was talking to her last night, that came up, and I'm like, holy cow. I remember being angry that I had to go to bed and it was still light out. And we pinpointed that to be somewhere pre-kindergarten because of where I lived, what I remember around me. So I've got this thing that, so I think my life is made up of a lot of moving parts, a lot of elements, and a lot of history. And there's a lot of it that didn't go the way I thought it should have went. And I drank over that for years. So to answer your question, there is nothing that makes me drink over anything. I've forgiven myself, and I've forgiven the past, and I've accepted that I'm where I'm supposed to be today because of everything that happened. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just a turn of approach. I'm no longer. I don't need forgiveness because I have acceptance. That's probably was the flip
like that.
for me.
So, man, this is a great topic. I heard a song last night that took me back to 8th grade. And I was in a hospital.
Star Spangled Banner when that first came out?
No. Yeah. Thanks. No, I was in 8th grade, and I heard the song Baker Street.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and it took me with the sax, and I love the
Sure.
sax, but it took me right back to a hospital bed, and it took me back to a nurse who was really nice to me, and I had a hematoma in my leg or whatever, and it took me right back to that spot in 8th grade, like I was there yesterday.
Right, sure.
Crazy how the brain works.
Crazy.
But as I look back, one of my acceptance issues is probably the first lie I told myself. Didn't know it then, but as I worked with my therapist, and you'll relate to this also, is I learned early on, as soon as I could comprehend, that I was adopted. And my whole lie I told myself is, oh, that's great, I'm with a family that loves me, and this is great. But what the truth was is I had deeply embedded DNA that I wasn't good enough. And I told myself a lie for years, many years, that, you know what, hey, I was better off, and then I found out the circumstances, and I was better off. Right? But I didn't acknowledge the truth that I wasn't good enough. And that was a weave throughout my entire life.
Well, how about my approach? I mean, my father was killed in a car accident when I was 4 years old. I still remember his wake. Right, last night when
That's
my
a
wife
memory
and I
way
talked
back,
about
man.
that. It's a memory. But I was angry at him. It was a car accident. But I was I spent.
So what did that anger look like as a 4-year-old? What can you remember?
Lashing out. How could you do this? How could you leave me behind? How could you not have paid attention? How could you blah 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 blah?
Yeah.
You left me. Abandonment issue, I guess some would say. And this show isn't. This conversation isn't about getting to the root of your problems. I guess if I had one message for today, it's work through it with the therapist because they have a better understanding of how the brain works. And even if they don't, it felt good for me just to think I processed through this a little bit and parked at the place of acceptance. I can now accept it was just an accident. I can now accept that little Mike was handling it the wrong way, right? I can accept that now. I don't have to be angry that I lashed out at my mom because my dad died, right?
But you probably did the best you could with the tools you had at the
Right.
time, and that's a lot of acceptance.
That's why
right?
you got to embrace the little Mike.
That's why you got to understand that.
Right.
You know? But one for bringing it back to our topic of living sorry,
right.
is self-forgiveness is what I found through the steps, and what I'm hearing from you, and love your perspective, is the steps of AA. You know, you have, identified things that we've done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we clean our side of the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's steps, 4, 5, identifying steps, 8, 9, you start to make amends, right? And I have found through the program, God has forgiven me. My higher power is God of the Bible, and all that story and what's packed behind that. I have been forgiven by God.
Mm-hmm.
I have redemption. I have a new clean slate. That cleans up a lot of crap. Like the maker who made me, my spiritual dad, has forgiven me.
That kind of puts your self-forgiveness in a new perspective, doesn't it?
Right, but I got that first,
Yes.
and that realization,
Got
and that
it.
connection,
Got it.
and all
Got
that
it.
work first.
Yeah.
Then secondly, I did steps 8 and 9, and the absolute miracles in my 8 to 9 step of how people forgave me.
Mm-hmm.
And they forgave me not because of my words, but because of how I lived.
Did you 9-step yourself?
I eventually did.
Yeah.
So I did, I was forgiven by God. I was forgiven, spiritually. I was forgiven by, people who I harmed on my 8th to 9th step. And then I did my own because of the proof that I saw of God and steps 8 and 9. I said, if they can forgive me,
Right.
I am worthy of forgiveness.
You are fact-based.
I am. I mean,
Yeah.
it had to be fact-based because it made it real. It wasn't just Glenn's making it up, my own program in my head that, I'm worthy of forgiveness.
Right.
That's ego.
That's bullshit.
I saw enough facts that I said, you know what? I am worthy of being forgiven, and I forgave myself. And now when I look back at my past and things that I did, not necessarily proud of them,
Mm-hmm.
but I have forgiven. I don't carry them like I do today because the slate's been cleaned by everybody. It's been cleaned by my higher power. It's been cleaned off by the people I actually did the harm to, and then I forgave myself.
Right.
And how I can't describe how freeing that is.
Right.
I mean, it feels freeing, right?
Right.
To you?
No, totally. And the fact of the matter is, why did I carry it for so long anyway? Why did I carry over it and I drank over it for so long? Because all I can do is be a better person. I can't change any of that past. So to not forgive is ridiculous because, again, for me, forgiveness is acceptance of what transpired, and why hold on to it? I mean, it's just unnecessary baggage. It's like swimming with a backpack full of bricks. Why do it?
I think it's a key to peaceful living.
Yes,
I don't think you can live
absolutely.
peacefully until you fully forgive yourself.
Right.
And
right.
it was funny because just as you were talking, I looked down and I flicked off a muffin
bug?
crumb.
Oh, muffin crumb.
A muffin crumb off my off my shirt.
Yeah.
Right? And that's almost how I live today. It's almost like, right, because my intentional living today, I live better.
Right.
And I'm not trying to screw people. I'm trying to be real. I try to have integrity.
That's right.
And guess what? I'm not perfect. So there's times I screw up.
Right.
And when I have zero issue with people today when I screw up because they see my intention, they see my effort, they see my, how I'm trying to live. And when I don't reach out, I'm saying, hey, Mikey, I screwed up, man. I was a little selfish. I talked way more on that show than I should have. I mean, I'm just aware, and man, it's just, that is a secret. You got to learn to forgive yourself.
Absolutely.
But that's one of the superpowers is being, but
It's
you have to
freeing.
live intentionally. And
Yes.
with the, You got to have the right. But I'm telling you, that's a secret. Not forgiving yourself is just, that's that emotional weight you're still going to carry around until you get that figured out.
Right. And I'm going to beat this drum one more time today. And that is that, and I love this about, you and I go to the same church. And, and the pastor of that church stood there and confidently said, counseling is not for the weak. Counseling is for the strong, right? Use the services out there. I mean, go to a talk therapist. Let them, who's trained, let them help you process things. I mean, it's not a weakness; it's a strength.
2001, I was at a party. A guy pulled me aside in his office.
Yeah.
And he saw that my plane was heading towards the mountains.
Yeah. Okay.
He pulled me aside. He goes, "Hey, man," he goes, "I see this coach." He goes, "Really helps me." He goes, "Don't want to be intrusive, but I think he would really help you."
Right.
And I looked at him. I'm like,
"What?
You fool!
What?
Are you? I need help? Are you kidding me?"
Right.
Dude, I'm me. Screw you. And he sat back and watched the plane crash right inside the mountain. And hey, you know what? Asking for help is a superpower.
Yeah.
Asking for forgiveness.
Yeah.
I just said to my wife, I'm like, "Hey, man," I said, "I just want to make sure that I'm touching all the bases. I'm running hard, I'm running fast, and hey, I mean well. If I'm doing something that's kind of against what you're into, just let me know."
Right.
And you know what? I really could. And then I said to her, "Because I'm really trying hard to be the best man I can be for you." I said, "So if I'm missing and serving vanilla ice cream instead of chocolate, that's an easy fix."
Right.
My intentions is to be the best man I can be for you.
Right.
And I'm telling you, a way to live like that today is just amazing. The rewards and just the peace that comes from it. That's how I get 90 on my sleep score. I wonder what your score would be.
Overachiever. Mine?
Oh, yeah.
100.
No, it wouldn't.
I have bizarre dreams. That's another episode.
I know. It tells you all. No, we'll have.
Does it record my dreams? That's
yes.
what I'm going to invent.
It doesn't record your dreams.
I want to see the video of my dreams.
It records when you're dreaming.
It
doesn't show what they are.
You're dreaming. Life is dreaming.
But it shows your heart rhythms during that dream, and you can figure it. Oh, it's crazy. Okay. Just crazy what technology does.
All right, unplug.
But it's also amazing what AA does.
It is amazing.
If I could plug AA, I would plug AA again and again and again.
Love you, brother.
Love you, man.
Have a good week.
Forgive yourself.
Forgive yourself.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.